Welcome to this tactical analysis of the Liverpool versus Real Madrid game. We're going to have a look at Liverpool's press, their focus on the right-hand side of their midfield build-up, Real Madrid's deep build-up, focus on their left-hand side combinations and their counter-attacks. With that, let's get into it. So to begin with, we have this scenario in the 19th minute with Real Madrid building up with a back two and then Camavinga as the holding midfielder and Modric dropping deeper to help out as either the left side of CDM or left back, with Alaba pushing very high. And then similarly on the right-hand side with Carvajal, he would also push high. This being against a 4-3-3 by Liverpool or a 4-4-2 where we have Jordan Henderson push up to become that second centre forward. Later in the game, Henderson's role supporting this right hand side of the attack or defence was taken over by Milner, tasked especially to try and defend when Alexander-Arnold pushed higher up on that right hand side in possession. Real Madrid were really happy, regardless of the initially worrying scoreline, to build up deep, to try and draw Liverpool higher up and create that space in behind the Liverpool backline. It almost goes without being said at this point, but Real Madrid focused their attacking energies and attentions on this left hand side of the pitch, looking to overload the space between Gomez and Trent. They did this with numbers and movement, so having Alaba higher up to try and occupy the two, as well as also having Benzema float around in this left hand side, sometimes even swapping with Vinicius, and then having Modric as well as cover, but then also another means of spraying possession from this left hand side. And then in the central space, you'd have the right sided centre midfielder Valverde push higher up to occupy more like a number 10 position. And given that Henderson out of possession in this 4-4-2 defensive shape essentially was playing as a right midfielder here, partly because Salah had just pressed higher up the pitch, but generally speaking, he was expected to push out into that space to allow Salah to stay higher up in a more counter-attacking position. It did mean the likes of Valverde could find space centrally. Before we move on, Alaba was taken off, likely due to the fact that the trio of Henderson, Trent and Salah were able to abuse their pace against him in that right-hand channel, and it was becoming quite a problem, whereas against Nacho, they couldn't find any such advantage. Eventually here we see Real Madrid spray the ball across to the right hand side for Rodrigo and Carvajal, who's pushed really high up here on this right hand side, with Rodrigo pushing more narrow to try and keep Robertson closer to Van Dijk and create that space for Carvajal. They were having both of their fullbacks push really high up to try and pin some of Liverpool's most dangerous players by their two fullbacks as deep as possible. Despite Nunez's defensive header from the switch, Real Madrid are able to re-win possession, and then we see them set up in that 2-1 or 2-3 shape again here, with the midfield just ahead of the back line, and with Henderson still taking up that right midfield position and Salah still waiting to pounce in case Liverpool win possession. Just note here this overload left hand side. Trent is looking to try and keep that space between himself and Gomez as narrow as possible, but Trent will really struggle in this matchup against Vinicius because of just how much quicker Vinicius is than Trent. But Gomez is as quick, if not quicker, than Vinicius, so Gomez's positioning was often taking into account the fact that Trent would be slower than the player he was going up against, and so that was creating a little bit of a gap here between himself and Van Dijk to just general instability in this right hand side of the pitch, because Gomez is anticipating his fullback being beaten. And then moving on to the 81st minute, Liverpool made numerous subs looking to refresh as well as also maybe improve their pressing ability, given the likes of Gatto and Nunez haven't had a lot of time with Jurgen Klopp's pressing style, whereas the likes of Jota and Firmino have. We've got here that deep build-up of Real Madrid again, as we showed earlier, with the two, and then your fullbacks pushing a little bit higher with Camavinga staying relatively deep and your two other midfielders just a little bit higher still, versus the 4-3-3 press by Liverpool. Once the ball was contested centrally, eventually it gets out here to the left hand side again, with Real Madrid looking to channel their attack through Vinicius, and just like Alaba did earlier in the game, Nacho is looking to support Vinicius and create as much confusion as possible in this left hand space. At this point, Matip is on rather than Gomez, but he's going to face the same quandaries as to how he positions with regards to himself and Van Dijk and Trent, given that he knows that Trent is most likely going to be beaten for pace here. Off Real Madrid's throw-in, Liverpool are able to win back possession and look to try and spring an attack. Liverpool have a history of exploiting set pieces to deadly effect, but as with numerous other occasions earlier in the game, there was just a lack of quality and ability to retain possession, and so we see an easy ball out here to the left-hand side for the tireless Valverde to just sweep up and give Real Madrid easy repossession of the ball. And then from there, as on numerous other occasions in this game, Real Madrid happy to drop deep and draw Liverpool onto them, from where Courtois looks to play a big switch towards this left-hand side. Liverpool win possession and look to play Trent into the right-hand side. Unfortunately, at this point, they don't have Nunez and Gakpo as aerial targets in the box, instead having Firmino and Jota, who were trying to be a lot more flexible in their positions during build-up play on this left-hand side. Trent's dribbling on the right-hand side is stopped and Real Madrid regain possession and look to counter-attack. And unlike earlier in the game where Vinicius would position higher up, so that similar to how we saw with Salah, instead now he was happier to drop deep. Earlier in the game, Real Madrid managed the fact that Vinicius would kind of loiter a little bit higher up the pitch by having Modric fill in for him in that left-hand space till Vinicius dropped back, at which point he could push more into centre midfield position. But here notice also Benzema dropping, looking to try and link with Vinicius and allow him to be able to get higher up into this left-hand space and expose Milner, who's trying to cover for Trent. And with that, thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, consider sharing it on social media, maybe subscribing. And with that, we're out.